Okay, continuing our conversation about Charlemagne and his Carolingian empire and their influence on art. I want to talk now about architecture. So Charlemagne encouraged the use of Roman building techniques, especially those related to Rome in Ravenna. Okay, so if you think back to the Byzantine lectures when the capital of Rome is in Ravenna for the western half of the empire, Charlemagne's very interested in that. So his biographer Einhard was who Charlemagne put in charge of the construction of the church at Aachen. Remember, he's moved his like home business center, his kind of head of operations to Aachen in what is now Germany. And so this is the construction of the Palatine Chapel at Aachen. And you can see some similarities here between other buildings. And as I said, he has a particular interest in Ravenna. So the central plan that is favored in some of the buildings in Ravenna, particularly San Vitale, is a big influence on the construction of the Palatine Chapel. So the Palatine Chapel at Aachen is very innovative in terms of its design. It has two cylindrical towers in the front with spiral staircases inside them. They are flanking the entrance, and this is foreshadowing the development of westwork. So westwork is something that becomes a part of the visual identity of churches, kind of for the rest of the history of Europe in the medieval age, all the way up through the Gothic. So westwork are these two towers in the front of the facade, and this is the first time we really see that. This is also the first vaulted medieval structure north of the Alps, so bringing these ideas about vaulting and arches that we see as a very influential and important part of the Roman Empire, the early Roman Empire, all the way up through the Byzantine. We haven't really seen that in Northern Europe yet, so this is the first building that's bringing those kind of influences, in structural influences. He also imports porphyry, which is a kind of marble that's kind of a purple color, because again, this idea of purple being a color of royalty, he really embraces that idea. And he wants to bring in that color palette. So we also see use of that marble in Ravenna and some of the structures there, including San Vitale. So he wants to echo that style and that look. So he imports these purple marble columns from Ravenna. We have similarities with the plan of San Vitale and Ravenna. So we have a lot of reference to previous grand works that relate to both the classical heritage of the Roman Empire in terms of design with the arches, the rounded Roman arches, the vaulting, the dome, that kind of thing. Also, we have this reference to early Christendom, right? So San Vitale and Ravenna particularly. Similar in plan to San Vitale, it's a little bit simpler, it's a little bit more simplified of a plan. It's very massive, very thick walls. It has this geometric form. It kind of foreshadows the Romanesque of the 11th and 12th century. Excuse me. There's a second story gallery, very much like Hagia Sophia of Constantinople, so that's another reference. So we can see a lot of influence. Charlemagne is buried here. His bones are in this sarcophagus that is inside this chapel. A lot of iconic religious decoration happening in here. This is what it looks like from the outside. It's hard to get a good outside shot of it because the city's really built up around it. So this foreshadow of westwork, when we see westwork really become its own, the towers are connected to the building, but you can see them, they expand beyond, whereas here they're kind of integrated into the narthex, into the entryway. So we have the spiral stair towers on either side, but they aren't clearly separate towers yet. So we see that development a little bit later. let's look at the inside here. So you can see the different kinds of marble. The purple porphyry columns are on the second floor along that gallery. You can see that there's a lot of mosaic work, a lot of gilded mosaic work inside the dome, which is again reminiscent of the Byzantine. Also, you notice the alternating dark green marble and white and heavily veined marble, very reminiscent of the Umayyad style from the Umayyad Caliphate in Spain. So we see the Islamic influence in the structure and its design as well. Okay. St. Gall Monastery in Switzerland. So we have monks are really important throughout the early medieval period and kind of all the way through the Middle Ages, actually. We have the Benedictine order of monks comes around in 529. Regulae Sancti Benedicti have their own rules. This becomes kind of the standard for all Western monasteries. Idleness is bad. An abbey is under the rule of an abbot or an abbess, so we also have abbeys where women, where nuns live. We also have monks living in these monasteries, and the idea is that they're supposed to be working every hour doing something useful or doing sacred reading. So the design of these monasteries and abbeys is supposed to reflect this kind of living, the monk lifestyle, basically. So St. Gall is a really good example of what this looks like. This is in Switzerland, and it's designed to be totally self-sufficient so that it doesn't have to rely on the outside world at all. It doesn't have to appeal to vanity or anything. So there are all these greenhouses, there's outdoor gardens, there's water wheels for grinding grain for bread. There's the oratory at the center, where we also have a monastic church. There's cloisters. So cloisters are a colonnade that surrounds a courtyard where it's supposed to be like heaven on earth for the monks, and they can do their contemplative walking and meditating there. There's widespread adoption of early Christian basilica church style rather than the domed Byzantine churches, and we see that in the monastery churches as well. As you can see at St. Gall, we have the two towers in the front, the westwork, then we have the nave with the side aisles and the clerestory, which is the basilica style, with the apse at the back, the rounded apse at the back where the altar went. So this basilica also has a transept. That's the crossing, the intersection here that crosses the nave. So it's equal width and height. The crossing is the area where the nave and let's see, do I have a picture of it? Yes. Okay, so the crossing is marked here with a C. This is where the transept crosses the nave. Okay, and this is a square, and the crossing square becomes a unit of measurement for how the rest of the church building is planned. And we have the towers framing the end of the church. So here's also the Library of St. Gall, which I just think is kind of incredible looking, so I like to share that. Here's the interior of the sanctuary inside the church. Okay, so let's look at some more examples. So in this Carolingian time period, we start really seeing the signature development of this westwork, which all comes from the influence of Aachen, and then this gets kind of combined with the basilica floor plan, and we start seeing what medieval churches are going to look like. This is Corvey in Germany. The west end incorporates towers, which creates this monumental facade that we call westwork. The castellum is the other word for like this top part of it, which is kind of the Latin word for a castle or a fortress. And then we have the turris, which the individual towers are the turris. Okay, this is the interior of it. You can see the groin vaulting all the way down to support the kind of massive structure of the roof over the nave. Okay, so we see the way architecture is coming about and being influenced in the Carolingian time period. And next we'll look at the Etonian development of style.